Hare Krishna Prabhuji, my name is Nikhil Prajapati and now I am going to read NCERT line by line. Unit 1st, Diversity in a Living World. Biology is the science of life. From the living process. The living world comprises the amazing diversity of living organisms. Early man could easily preverse and the difference between inanimate matter and living organisms. Early man defined some of the inanimate matter, wind, sea, fire, etc., and some among the animals and plant. A common feature of all such form of inanimate and animal object was the sense of awe and fear that they evoke. The description of living organisms include human beings began much later in human history. Society which indulged an anthropocentric view of the biology could register limited process in biological knowledge, systematic and monumental description of life from brought in out of necessity detailed system of identifications, nomenclature and classification. The biggest spin-off of such studies was recognition of the sharing of similarities among the living organisms both horizontally and vertically, that all present-day living organisms are related to each other and also to all organisms that ever lived on earth was the revelation which humbled man and led to the cultural movement for the conservation of biodiversity. In the following chapter of this unit, you will get as description include as a classification of animals and plant from a taxonomist and perspective. Born 5th July 1904 in Kempten, Germany, Ernst Mayr, the Harvard University evolutionary biologist who has been called as the Darwin of the 20th century, was one of the 100 greatest scientists of all time. Mayr joined the Harvard's Faculty of Arts and Science in 1953 and retired in 1975, assuming the title Alexander Magazine Professor of Zoology Emeritus. Throughout his nearly 18-year career, his research spanned ornithology, taxonomy, geography, evolutionary systematic, and the history of philosophy of biology. He almost single-handedly made the origin of species diversity the central question of the evolutionary biology was that what is today. He is pioneered the currently accepted definition of the biological species. Mir was awarded the three prize widely regarded as the triple crown of the biology. Balazan Prize in 1983, an International Prize of Biology in 1994, and Crawford Prize in 1999. Mayr did die at the age of 100 in year 2004. Ernst Mayr, 1904 to 2004. Chapter 1st, Living World. What is living? How wonderful is the living world? The wide range of a living type is amazing. The extraordinary habitat in which we find a living organisms, and it could mountain, delicious forest, ocean, freshwater lake, desert, or hot spring leaves and speechless. The beauty of galloping horse of the migrating bird, and the valley of the flower or attacking shark evoke and a deep sense of the wonder. The ecological the ecological conflict and cooperation among the member of a populations among and the population of the community. Even the molecular traffic inside the cell make us deeply reflected on what need is life. This is question has to implicate question within it. The first is a technical, one is seek answer, and two is living is as obsessed to the non-living, and second is philosophical one and speak answer of the what the purpose of the life as scientist. We shall not attempt answering the second question, we will try to reflect on what is living. What is living? When we try to define a living, constantly looking, we conventionally look for a destructive characteristic exhibited by the living organism: growth, reproductive ability to sense an environment, and mountains suitable response to come our mind. An immediately unique feature of living organisms. One can add a few more features like metabolism's ability to self-replicate, self-originate, intersect, and emergence to this list. Let us try to understand each of these. All living organisms grow. Increase in a mass, increase in the number of individuals as twin characteristic of the growth in multicellular organisms. Grow by the cell division in a plant and grow by the cell division occur continuously throughout their lifespan in an animal, and this is seen only up to the certain age. However, cell divisions occur in a certain tissue to replace lost cell. Unicellular organisms grow by the cell divisions. One can easily observe this in the vector-cultures by the simple counting of the number of the cell under the microscope in a majority of the higher animals of the plant. Grow in reproductions and mutually exclusive event. One must remember that increase in a body mass is considered as growth. Non-living object as grow if we take increase in a body mass and criteria. Body mass as a creation growth. Mountain bundles and a sound mountain do grow. However, this kind of growth exhibited by the non-living object is by accumulation of material on the surface. In a living organisms, growth is formed inside. Growth, therefore, cannot be taken as a defining property of a living organism's condition under which it can be observed in all living organisms have to be explained, and then we understood that it is the characteristic of a living system, and a dead organism does not grow. Reproduction likewise a characteristic of a living organisms. In a multicellular organism, reproduction referred to as a production of a progeny. Processing features more or less similar to these of the parents. Invariability and implicity we refer to as a sexual reproduction. Organisms reproduce by the asexual means, also find as a multiply and spread easily due to the millions of asexual spores they produce. In lower organisms like yeast and hydra observed budding and planaria. Flatworm we observe true regenerations. Example, fragmented organism regenerated the lost part of its body becomes new organisms and fungi. The filamentous alga and protonema of moss all easily multiply by the fragmentation. When it come to unicellular organisms like bacteria, unicellular alga, or amoeba, reproduction is a synonyms which grow and increase in the number of cells We have already defined growth as equivalent increase in a cell number or mass. Hence, we notice that a single cell organisms we are not very clear about the uses of these two terms in the great growth of the reproduction. Further, there is many organisms which do not reproduce: mules, sterile, worker bee, infertile, human couple, etc. Hence, reproduction also cannot be all-inclusive definition and characteristic of a living organism. Of course, non-living organism object as capable of reproduction or replicating by itself. Another characteristic of life is metabolisms. All living organisms are made up of a chemical. These chemical is small and big, belonging to the various classes, size, functions, etc. Constantly being made and a change in the sum of the biomolecules. These conservation are a chemical reaction for the metabolism's reactions. There are thousands of metabolism reactions occurring simultaneously inside all living organisms, be they unicellular, multicellular. All plant and animals, fungi and microbials exhibit metabolisms, and the sum of all total chemical reactions occurring in our body is metabolisms. No non-living objects exhibit metabolisms. Metabolic reactions can be demonstrated outside the body in a cell-free system, and isolated metabolic reactions outside the body of an organism performed in a test tube, neither living nor non-living. Hence, while with metabolism is a defining feature of all living organisms without exceptions, isolated metabolism reaction vitro are non-living things, but surely living reaction. Hence, the cellular organization of the body is a defining feature of life form. Perhaps the most observed and technical complications feature of all the living organisms is this ability to sense their surrounding and environment and respond. These environment stimuli, which could be physical, chemical, and biological. We sense our environment through our sense organ, plant, and respond to exhibit factors like light, water, temperatures, other organisms, pollutions, etc. All organisms form as a prokaryotic of the most complex eukaryotics. Sense and respond to environment. Gas was a photoperiod affect reproduction in a seasonal breeders, both plant and animals. All organisms handle chemical and entering their body. All the organisms therefore be aware of their surrounding. Human beings is the only organism who is aware of him as a self-conscious. Conscious therefore become the defining property of living organisms. When it comes to the human beings, it is all major difficulties of defining living state and observe the patient laying in the coma in a hospital. Virtual support is by machine which replace the heart and the lungs. The patient is otherwise brain dead. The patient has no self-consciousness as for the patient who never come back on a normal life, living and non-living. In a higher class, in higher classes, you will come to know and all the living phenomena are due underlying interactions. Property of a tissue are not present in a constituent cell, but arises as a result interactions among the constituent cells. Similar property of the cell organelles are not present in a multicellular constituent of the organelle, but arises as a result of interaction among the molecules comprising the organelles. In interaction result in emergent property of the higher level of organisms, and the phenomena is true the hierarchy of organisms and complexity of all their. We can say that living organisms are self-replicating, evolve as a self-replicating interactive interactive system capable to respond external stimuli. Biology is the story of life on earth. Biology is the story of evolution of living organism on Earth. All living organisms present, past, future, and linked to one of the other by the sharing of a common genetic material, but to varying degree. Diversity in a living world. If you look around you, you'll see the large variety of living organisms, be it potted plant, insect, bird, you pet, and other animals and plant there. There are also several organisms that you could not see with your naked eyes, but they are all around you. If you were increase the area that you make observation in the range of a variety of organism that you see would increase. Obviously, if you were visit a dense forest, you would probably see the much greater number of the kinds of living organisms in it. Each different kind of the plant, animals, and organisms that is see the represent in a species, the number of species that are known as a described range between 1.7 to 1.8 millions. This refers to biodiversity or a number of type of organisms present on Earth. We should remember that we explore a new area and even old one and new organisms are constantly observed as being identified. As they started earlier, there are millions of plant and animals in the world. We know the plant and animals in our own area, but the local names, this local means would vary from place to place, even within a country, and probably you would recognize the confusion that would be created if we did not find as way means to talk to each other and refer to as organisms we are taking about. Hence, that we need to standardize the naming of the organisms, and organisms such as that particular organism is known as the same and name of all over the world and process called as nomenclature. Obviously, nomenclature are namely only possible when the organism is described correctly. We know what organism's name is attached to the identification. In order facilitate the study number and scientists have established procedures to assign a scientific name to each know the organism. This is the acceptable of the biology all over the world. For the plant, a scientific name form based on agreed principle and criteria which are provided in an International Code of Botanical Nomenclature (ICBN). You may ask, how are animals named? Animal taxonomists have evolved International Code of Geological Nomenclature (ICZN). The scientific name ensures that each organism has only one name. Describe of any organisms should enable the people in any part of the world and arises the same name. They also ensure that such a name has not been used for any other no organisms. Biologists follow the universal accepted principles to provide a scientific name is known as organisms. Each name has two components, the generic name and a specific epithet. The system is to provide a name of two with a two component is called binomial nomenclatures, and the naming of the system is given by the Coriolis lineage. It has been practiced by the biology all over the world. This naming system is using the word and format the convinced. Let us take an example for the mango and understand the way of providing the scientific name. Better scientific name in the mango is written as Magnifera indica. Let us see how it is in binomial names. And this is the Magnifera. Magnifera represents the genus, and while indica is a particular species of the species, I appreciate other universal rule of a nomenclature as follows. First, biological names are generally in Latin and written in italic. They are Latinized and derived from a Latin irrespective of their origin organisms. Second, the first of the biological names represent the genus, while the second component denote the specific epithelate. Both the word and biological name, when the handwritten, are separate. Underline the printed and italics of the are to the indicate their Latin origin. The first order denoting the genus started with the capital letter, while the specific epithelate starts with the small letter. It can be illustrated with example of a Magnifera indica. Name of the anther appear after the specific epithet example and end of the biological name, and is written as abbreviated from example Magnifera indica liner. Indica was the species the first described by the first name. The ortho appear as after a specific epithet example at the end of a biological name and written in an abbreviate from example Magnifera indica liner is indicate that a specific was the first described by the linears. Since it is nearly impossible to study all the living organisms, it is necessary to devise some means to make it possible. This process is classification. Classification is the process by which anything is grouped into the covenant categories based on some easily observable characters. For example, we easily recognize a group such as a plant or animals to dog and cat and insect movement or any of these terms as associate a certain character which are organized the group. What image do you see? When you think about a dog, observe as each of the will we see do not cat now ever. If we were think Alistania, we know that as a taking about the similarity. Suppose we were same mammals. First, biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. They are italicized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. Second, the first word is a biological name represent the genus, while second component denoted as a specific epithelate. Third, both the word in a biological name when the handwritten are separately underlined or printed in italics or indicate their Latin origin. Fourth, the first word denoting the genus start with a capital letter with a specific epithelate start with a small letter. It can be illustrated with the example of Magnifera indica. The name of author appear after the specific epithelate example, the end of a biological name and written as abbreviate from the Magnifera indica Lenin. It indicates that a species was the first described by the Linnaeus, since the nearly impossible to study that all living organisms it increased to devise some means to make it possible. This process is a classification. Classification is a process by which anything is grouped into the covenant categories based on some easily observable characters. For example, we easily recognize a group such as a plant and animal of the dog, cat, insect, and the moment we use any of these terms, we associate a certain character with the organisms in a group. What image do you see when you think about a dog? Obviously, each one we has to see the dog, not a cat. Now, if we were thinking about the Allistrina, we know as to the taking about a similar suppose we were say the mammals. If you add of course think animals with external ear and body hairs. Likewise, a plant and a tree tall of a wheat and pictures of each and our mind with that wheat plant not rice or any other plant hence in all these dogs, cat, mammals, weird rice plant, animals, etc. Convenient categories we use as a study organism and scientific term as these categories in a taxa. Here we must recognize that taxa can indicate categories at a very different level. Plant also from a taxa where is also taxa similarities. Animal, mammals, dog are all a taxa, but you know that dog are the mammals and the mammals are animals. Therefore, animal, mammals, dog represent taxa at a different level. Hence, based on a characteristic, all living organisms can be classified into a different taxa species. The process classification is a taxonomy, external and internal structure along with the structure of the cell. Development. The process and ecological information of organism are essential to form as based on the modern taxonomic studies. Hence, characterizations, identification, classification, and nomenclature are the processes that are based on a taxonomy. Taxonomy is not a something new human beings have been also been inserted is known as more and more about the various kind of organisms, particular with a reference to their own uses. In earlier day, human beings needed to find a source of their basic need of the food, clothing, and shelter. Here, the earlier classification were based on uses of various organisms. Human beings were since long not only interested in knowing more about different kinds of organisms and their diversity, but not the relationship among them, and a branch of the study of referred to as a systematic. The word systematic is derived from a Latin word systema, which means a systematic arrangement of a living organism. Linnaeus used as a systema nature in the title of a publication, and the scope of a systematic was a letter enlarged to include identification, nomenclatures, and classification. Systematic take into account evolutionary relationship between organisms. 1.3 Taxonomic categories. Classification is not a single step process but involve a hierarchy of a step in which step and represent the rank of categories. Since the category is a part of overall taxonomic arrangement, it is called a taxonomic categories, and all categories together constitute the taxonomic hierarchy. Each category is referred to as a unit of classification, in fact, represent rank, and it's commonly termed as a taxon, plural, taxa. Taxonomic categories hierarchy can be illustrated by an example. Insect present is a group of organisms sharing a common feature like as three pair of joined leg at mean insect as recognizable concept. The object which can be classified and there be given a rank or categories. Can you name others such as group organisms? Remember, group represent categories further denoted rank, which rank and taxa in fact represent a unit of classification. These taxonomic group categories are distinct biological entities, not merely morphological aggregate. Taxonomical study, all known as organisms, have led to the development of common categories such as kingdom, phylum, or divisions. For a plant, class, order, family, genus, species, all organisms include those in a plant and animal kingdom have species as the lowest categories. Now the question you may ask for how to place an organisms in a various categories. The basic requirement to the knowledge of the categories, individual and the group organisms, is help in identifying similar that dissimilar among the individual of the same kind of organisms as well as other kinds of organism species. Taxonomic studies considered as a group individual organisms with as fundamental similarities as a species. One should be able to distinguish on a specific from other observed closely related species based on a distinct morphological difference. Let us consider Magnifera indica, Solegnum, tuberosum, potato and Panthera leo lion. All the three names indicate tuberosum and leo present the specific epithelia, while the first word Magnifera Solegnum and Panthera are genera and represent another higher level of taxonomic categories. Each genus may have to be one or more than one species epitheliate to represent a different organism but having morphological similarities. For example, Panthera has another species called as a tigress, species epithet called as a tigress, and Solegnum indicate species like nigrum, and the malignogenum. Human beings as belong to as a speciation, which is grouped in a genus Homo. The scientific name is as human beings written as the Homo sapien. Genus comprise a group of related species which has a more characteristic in a common in comparison to species of the other genera. We can say that genera are aggregate of closely related species, for example potato and brinjal, and are two different species but both belong to the genus Solegnum. Lion, Panthera leo, leopard, P. parados and tigers, P. tigers, यहाँ P का मतलब प्यूलर है, which several common features. All species of a genus Panthera. This genus differ from another genus Felicis, which include cat. Family. The next category, family, has a group related genera which is still less in the number similarities, and compared with genus species. Family are characterized on the basis of both vegetative and reproductive feature of plant species among the plant. For example, three different genera and Solegnum, Petunia and Datura are placed in a family Solanaceae among the animals. For example, genus Panthera comprising lions, tiger, leopard, it put along with genus Felis, cat. The family Felidae. Similarly, if you observe that a feature of a cat and a dog, you will find some similarities and some difference as well. They separated into a different family, Fediaceae and Canidae, respectively. Order. You have seen earlier that categories like species, genus, and family are based on a number of similar characters. Generally, order and other higher taxonomic categories are indicated based on aggregate of characteristic. Other beings higher categories is assemblies of the families which exhibit a few similar characteristics. The similar characters are less in a number as compared to different genera. Include in families, plant families like convolens solanaceae are included in order to polyminerals minerals based on floral characters. The animals order Carnivora include the family like Felidaceae and Canidae. Class. This category include as a related order, for example, order Primata, comprising the monkey and gorilla. Gibron on a placed in a class mammalian along with order Carnivora that include animals like tigers, cat and dog. Class mammalians has other order also. Phylum class comprising animals like fishes, amphibian, reptile, bird along with the mammals constitute the next higher categories called phylum. All these based on the common feature like presence of a notochord and dorsal hollow natural system are included in a phylum chordata. In case of a plant, classes with a few similar characters are assigned to be higher categories called a division. Kingdom all animals belong to a various phyla are assigned to the highest categories called kingdom Animalia in the classification system of animal. The kingdom Plantae on the other hand is distinct. The compromise all plant from various divisions. Henceforth, we will refer to these two groups as animal and plant kingdom. The taxonomic categories from a species to the kingdom have been so in an ascending order, starting with the species, figure 1.1, starting with a species, genus, family, order, class, phylum or a division, kingdom. These are broad categories. However, taxonomist has also developed subcategories in this hierarchy to facilitate more sounded and scientific placement of the various taxa. Look at the hierarchy in a features. Can you recall the basis of arrangement? Say for example, as we go higher from a species to kingdom, and a number of the common characteristics goes on decreasing. Lower the taxa, more are characteristics that are a member within the taxon. Say higher the categories, greater is the difficulty of the demarcating of a relationship of the other taxa at the same level. Hence, the problem of a classification become more complex. Table 1.1 indicate the taxa and the categories which one has a common organism like a housefly, mallows, mango, wheat belong. Organism with the taxonomic and the categories. Common name, biological name, genus, family, order, class, phylum. Man का common name Homo man is a common name. Biological name Homo sapien, genus Homo, family Homidaceae, order Primata, class Mammalia, phylum division Chordata. Common housefly का common name है housefly. Biological classification Muscus domestica, genus Musica, family Musidia, order Diptera, class Insecta, phylum Arthropoda. Mango, common name mango, biological name Magnifera indica, genus Magnifera, family Anacardiaceae, order Spasidiales, Sapendilus, class Dicotyledon, phylum Angiosperm. Wheat, common name है wheat, biological name है Trichium aestivation, genus Trichtium, family Poaceae, order Poales, class Monocotyledon, phylum Angiosperm. Thank you to everyone. Hare Krishna.